1,000 episodes. We are the podcast with the most. So one we call the Holy Post has all your favorite podcast hosts. 500 shows. Now everybody knows. Christian asks and takes Phil to task. It's Kaitlyn's faces, Skye and Dust our places. Good news, bad news, but news, sad news. Aren't we glad news? Gonna make a mad news. What's your favorite podcast show? Holy Post 500th episode.
Hi, Holy Post family. I'm Shelby. I'm from Virginia. Congratulations on 500 episodes. And I just wanted to say thank you for the profound impact you've had in my life, especially over the past 2 years of uncertainty and fear. You've definitely made me feel like I'm not alone. You've been such a passionate and faithful representation of Jesus when so many of us were experiencing crises and injustice. So thank you for using your platform and your voices to lift up the hurt and the oppressed. May God continue to bless you in your ministry. Thanks, guys.
Hi, Phil, Skye, Christian, Kaitlyn, and Jason. My name is Jared White from Rochester, New York, and happy 500th episode. And thank you so much for the impact that you've made in my life personally. I cannot put fully into words how much this podcast has meant to me over the years. Your podcast was my spiritual nourishment while I was away at a state college where finding a good church was really difficult for me. Your podcast has taught me how to engage with people from other churches or non-church traditions in a loving and compassionate way. I still think the episodes with Peter Boghossian, the early episodes, are some of my favorite examples of that. And your podcast continues to help me to learn how to walk with God in such a personal way than I was ever taught growing up. So thank you all so much. Here's for the podcast to come. And please, Phil, never stop doing the news of the butt. Thanks, guys.
Hello, this is Edgar from Toronto, Canada. I've listened since near the beginning, and when the kids were younger, we often listened together in the car. And I've always loved how the podcast takes on the most contentious issues of the day, and it helped us see that there is a way to address any issue in a way that's intelligent, curious, and faithful. Thanks for making the podcast, and happy 500th episode.
Hey there, it's me, Phil. Welcome back to the Holy Post podcast. This is a very special episode. It is our 500th episode. We've been doing this for 10 years. That's longer than Kaitlyn Shess has been alive. We have a great team here to talk about this momentous occasion. I'm here with Christian Taylor. Hi, Christian.
Hey there.
And Kaitlyn Shess.
Hi, Phil.
Hi.
Not 10.
She turned 11. We are with Kaitlyn Shess in person for the first time ever.
Yeah, she's not an AI bot.
No.
I'm a real person.
She's not an avatar.
I can touch her. Yeah. Hi. So nice to see you in person.
Only Christian is allowed to do that. And we're here with Skye Jitani.
Hi.
Hi, Skye.
This is the first time we're back together in person in studio since the pandemic.
I know.
It's like this is now officially signaling the pandemic is over.
The pandemic is over, everyone. We're back. Jesus told me the pandemic was over when he handed me the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Okay, Phil, you've started already.
Okay.
The train is off the track.
And now for the theme song.
What's the news that you like the most? Who's your favorite podcast host? If it's breakfast, get your toast. It's Skye and Phil and the Holy Post. Skye and Phil and the Holy Post.
And this time, Kaitlyn and Christian in the same room for the first time ever, which may disrupt the space-time continuum.
We need to go back, because Kaitlyn doesn't know this stuff.
It's true.
Because she's only 11. So we need to go back to how it all started. You were 1 year old when we started. Let's go back even further. Let's go back even further to little Phil as a little kid watching TV and wanting to tell stories. And I was playing with animation, and I was playing with puppets, and I wanted to be Jim Henson or Walt Disney or something like that. And then I got to college, and then I started working, and I said, I want to make something for Christian kids. What would be the easiest thing to do first? And I was a big fan of David Letterman at the time. I was watching David Letterman all the time because he was so sarcastic, and I loved it. And I thought, I could do that. I could be David Letterman. And so I actually pitched the idea. I don't even know if you know this.
I don't think I do.
I pitched the idea that I would do a talk show for Christian teenagers.
As a college student.
No, I was like I'd already
What
been
could
kicked
go
out of
wrong
college.
with that?
I was only a college student for 18 months, so that was not a long phase of my life. So I thought, okay, kids, if kids are growing up watching David Letterman or whatever on late night TV, they would love a take on faith that's a little more like that. And a little less like, the
700 Club?
Yeah, TBN and CBN and all the BNs that don't really appeal to anyone under the age of 50 or 60.
Or 80.
Or 80. And so I had that idea, and I was hanging out with my friend Mike Naraki. Okay.
Larry the Cucumber.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, Mike could be like my sidekick. He could be my Ed McMahon, my Andy Richter. And I'll be, the other guy.
David Letterman or Johnny Carson.
Yeah, or Conan.
It's Conan.
So...
Conan. That's Schwarzenegger.
It's spelled the same.
It's pronounced differently.
It should be said the same.
Like Colin and Colin. Colin Powell.
Yeah.
It's just like Colin.
Colin
But he goes
Firth.
by Colin. I don't know why. I would pick Colin, but he goes by Colin.
When was the last time you had a colon exam?
What does that
When
have
was
to
the
do
last time
with
you
anything?
had a Colin exam?
All right, this is really degrading. Okay, back on track.
So,
You were telling us a story.
I went to... My mom worked at David C. Cook Publishing. I went into David C. Cook and said, I want to make a show. I want to make a talk show.
Wait a second.
What?
Taco just came back.
Taco's back. Yay!
Welcome back, Taco. Okay, David
Taco
C.
was
Cook.
lost under an old mask during the pandemic on the floor of the Giuttani house.
He took extreme precautions during the pandemic.
very extreme precautions.
Very small bubble.
So I went to David C. Cook and I pitched this idea. It's going to be a talk show, kind of funny for teenagers, Christian teenagers. And I guess, we could sell it on VHS in Christian bookstores.
What year is this?
Weekly?
Yeah.
You're going to sell it weekly every episode?
No, there wouldn't be. It wouldn't have been weekly. It wouldn't have been that often. This would have been 90, maybe.
Okay.
89, maybe 89.
Which was legitimately before Kaitlyn was
Legitimately
born.
before I was born.
Yeah. And so I talked to David C. Cook, and they said,
Is there an actual David C. Cook? Did you talk to him?
I talked to the company.
Okay.
There was an actual David C. Cook, but it was long, long ago.
Okay.
Hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And the guy I was talking to said, teenagers don't buy a lot of VHS cassettes in Christian bookstores.
That's a good point.
And I said, and he said, could you do something for kids instead?
Interesting.
I said, well, I'd love to do something for kids, but it's so expensive. What could I possibly come up with that I could do for kids by myself? Like I could do me sitting at a desk with Mike. We could do it by ourselves. What could Mike and I do by ourselves for kids? And that's where VeggieTales came from. It's 'cause
that's where Hershey bars came from.
That's where Hershey bars came from, chocolate bars first, and then it turned into vegetables, and then it became VeggieTales. And it was Mike and I, because David C. Cook said we couldn't do a talk show.
So a classic case of where God closes a door.
He opens a talk show. No. Vegetable.
he opens vegetables.
He opens a kitchen.
A vegetable garden.
He opens the vegetable cooler.
Yeah. So that idea of doing a talk show went away. Vegetables, kids stuff for a long time. And I was doing puppets. This is after Big Idea. I was doing puppets. I was doing Bible teaching stuff. And I would drive back and forth to my studio. I was listening to the radio. I was listening to NPR, usually listening to the news on NPR. And I found myself having little conversations with myself because I'm an introvert. So I am my favorite conversationalist partner. So I was talking to myself about the stories on NPR, and every now and then I'd say, well, that was really an interesting angle that I just thought of on that story that they didn't think of on NPR because they don't look at it from a Christian point of view. And I thought, what if other people would find my little thoughts interesting besides me? I wonder. And that idea for a talk show came back. And now I was watching Stephen Colbert instead of David Letterman. I was like, well, I could do something like Stephen Colbert. I mean, and when I could build a little set, and then I could sit in a little chair, and I need somebody sitting next to me. And I thought, who could possibly sit next to me? And then I thought, hey, there's that guy I met not too long ago who's a pastor at my church, and my mom says he's brilliant, keeps talking about him, and he's bald, and he's multi-ethnic, and he has a seminary degree.
Checks every box.
So I said to Skye Giuttani, I said, hey, Skye, I might do a talk show. Would you like to be on it?
I remember this.
Yes. And what did you think at the time?
I said, sure, I'd be happy to come on it as a guest. And you're like, no, I don't want you on as a guest. I want you on like every time.
Forever.
And I said, well, why? What are we gonna do? And you didn't just know me as like a pastor some random. We get together regularly. We were friends. We'd have lunch.
But I really started getting to know you when we started going to Okoboji again.
Right.
Because I wasn't at Blanchard. Most of the time you were a pastor there.
That's true.
Yeah, you forgot about that.
Yeah,
you were hanging out with my mom, which you still hang out more with my mom than you hang out with me.
She's more fun. I'm joking. Anyway, but we'd have lunch from time to time, and I was beginning kind of as an author, and you had some experience, so I was picking your brain about how to be an author and deal with publishers and all that, and you were kind of figuring out your post big idea realities, and we would talk about whatever, and you floated this idea of this talk show, and you wanted me to come on, and I said, sure, I'd be happy to come on as a guest, and you said, no, I want you on every time. And I said, to do what? And you said, this. We're going to talk like this, like the conversations we have at lunch. And
do this. We're going to do this.
And it felt like that moment. Remember in Seinfeld when they're pitching the show?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a show about nothing?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me a little bit. Like,
And that's actually what happened.
Yeah.
So we're going to sit around and talk about stuff on TV that you think other people would be interested in talking about or listening to.
That kind of sounds like what happened to you in middle school.
What happened to me in middle school?
Did you read your book?
Were you there?
No, remember you said I was in middle school and I was having these thoughts in my head and you told a joke and people laughed and you're like, I wonder if people would be interested in these strange thoughts in my head.
Oh yeah.
You had that experience twice.
Yeah, I was in high school. I would say funny things so quietly that no one could hear them. And then the kid next to me would repeat them loudly and then everyone would laugh.
There's a Key and Peele skit about that.
Is there?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
What's that called? We should look that up.
I don't know, but
we'll look it up. Okay, Christian, where do you come in? What's the first thing you remember that brought you into this black hole of commentary?
I was going to say this illustrious orbit of glory.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I like that. That needs to be a T-shirt.
Orbit of glory is what I meant to say.
I was sitting in my office at Gap Digital, and I sort of branched out into working again. And I was a voiceover actor, had my little studio here, but I'd started doing a lot of producing. And I was in the studio or in the city of Chicago producing different stuff. And you used to record there.
Frequently for
VeggieTales. Yep. And this was, around 2000 something, the teens.
Yes, it was around there.
2000
right
teens,
around there.
like 11, 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you and I had known each other since our kids, since Shelby and Jacob were like
much
2.
long ago.
Yeah, so a long time ago. So you just came in, sat down in my little chair and said, so.
Not the same chair she was sitting on.
No,
different chair.
Different chair.
Yeah.
And you said, I am interested in doing a television talk show, sort of like Stephen Colbert with Skye Jitani, and I need somebody to produce that. Would you be interested?
You want to produce it?
Yeah. I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course, I've never done that before.
Of course. Me neither. Me neither.
But I thought, how hard could it be?
Yeah. How hard could it be?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, and we did it.
We did do it.
We did it. We even made T-shirts.
I know, and we had people and a live audience.
We had a live studio audience.
We had hot cookies from Shane's.
We had hot cookies.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
It was
fun.
We had programs. Tickets. Yeah. Do you remember we had
tickets? Yeah, because we had to wrangle. We did 2 tapings of 2 shows each, so we wrangled 2 different studio audiences in and out of the office. I had bought all these chairs to put them in,
and we had a budget of $6,000. Do you remember that?
No.
So they gave me a budget of $6,000, and they're like, "Can you do this for that?" And I was like, "Absolutely, we'll make it work." We all had black, like clothes on with our Phil Vischer T-shirts.
Yeah,
and
like we're all backstage at the high school musical.
It was called the Phil Vischer Show.
It was called the Phil Vischer Show.
Yeah, it was not called the Holy Post Show.
And I really wish we could resurrect those videos because he did You do?
Yeah.
Because he did a stand-up talk show. He did 4, 20-minute monologues.
No, not 20 minutes. More like 6 minute monologues. Yeah. But they're pretty dated now.
Oh, I want to see that so bad.
Yeah, it was
I want to see
2012. I was talking about Herman Cain.
Oh, my goodness.
I want to see that so bad.
And we had guests on like Darren Streblow, Eric Metaxas.
Yep.
Who
else? Oh, the guy, the filmmaker from the guy who
the God is...
Yes, the Touch of God filmmaker. Forget his name.
And then who was the next one?
I don't know. Who was the other? Who was the fourth?
I don't remember.
Don't remember. I remember Darren and Eric Metaxas.
You know what? I actually have a framed picture with the 4 tickets and a big cast photo in my office, but it's all packed up. So I don't even remember. If you have the picture, who's the fourth one?
I don't know. I do not remember.
That's terrible.
Kaitlyn, do you remember?
I don't know.
Okay.
No.
Were you born yet at that time?
Yes.
So then... So then I have these masters and I show them to some people and I say, so where do you think we could pitch this where someone would buy it? And it's like the only potential was TBN. There's just no other Christian broadcaster that has any money. And I think we talked to them very briefly and they said, nah. And then it became clear this doesn't have anywhere to go. But since we're flying these people in, this was actually before we taped, since we're flying some people in, we're flying in Eric Metaxas, for example, let's record a podcast. There's this thing called podcasting.
That is not what happened.
No, that's not what happened.
I'll tell you what happened.
What happened?
So I was told we could have no more money to make anything else.
Yeah.
And so by the people that were giving us money to make things.
Yeah.
And so I was told we
was
won't
it
give you.
The Germans? Is that who was giving us?
They were who shall not be named.
Yeah.
But they were told we could have no more money.
Yeah, no more money.
And so we really didn't have the money to do anything else.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, we can do a talk show for free. We can sit here and talk. And that's my memory of how it started.
Yeah, but we had Eric Metaxas on when he was in town to do the talk show. So they overlapped.
Yeah, totally.
We took advantage of the people because I think we did one with Darren. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
We did one with Darren.
The very first one that I remember us recording was right over there with Oz Guinness.
No.
That wasn't the first one.
That wasn't
in
the
the
first.
first 5.
Yeah.
It was in the first 5.
Eric was the first.
No, Eric was the second.
Well, he was the first guest.
Yes, he was the first guest.
Because the first one was just the 3 of us.
Yeah, and it was while we had flown him in to be on the talk show.
Right.
So there you go.
I thought the idea, Christian, it was your idea, but I thought it was, hey, we should document like behind the scenes what's going on as we develop this show, and we'll do that in a podcast format.
Maybe.
I think that was it.
Could be.
Could be. Who knows?
Could
It's
be.
so long ago. I can't remember what happened last week.
Of course, there's one more person here that we haven't talked to. Kaitlyn, what is your first memory of this being a thing? Had you heard of it before we picked up your book and said we'd like to talk to you about your book?
I had heard of it. I had not listened to it.
Okay.
I remember you messaged me on Twitter and asked for the email for my the publicity person at the publisher to get a copy of my book. And I remember I was at my parents' house on vacation and I ran down the stairs and I was like, Bill Vischer messaged me on Twitter. So that's my first memory.
Yeah. I discovered that VeggieTales made it easier to at least get people's attention.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was like so excited.
So when he invited you to come on the show the first time to be interviewed about your book, did you go back and listen to what is this show about? Or did you come in completely blind?
I didn't listen to it beforehand, which I should have done.
Because you assumed whoever made VeggieTales believes all the same things I believe.
I thought it would be
everyone
good.
assumes.
I thought it would be good.
And that was
I thought it would be good, but it didn't turn out that way.
But I wasn't going to listen to the episode I was on because I don't want to listen to myself.
Yeah.
But then people on Twitter were saying that they loved the part beforehand. And I was like, there's a part beforehand? So then I listened.
I think that surprises a lot of
Then
guests.
I listened to it.
What is that part beforehand? Yeah, some people skip that part and go to the other part, and some people just listen to that part and skip the other part.
It's interesting.
But you need to eat the whole hot dog and the bun, or you're just not getting the nutrition you need to be a healthy Christian.
Can I say one thing that I feel like needs to be said?
Uh-oh.
One thing that I remember, Phil, is that you were going around and doing a lot of speaking before we did this talk show.
Yeah.
And now everybody who grew up on VeggieTales was in college.
Yep.
And I remembered you saying that they really liked hearing you speak about the cultural issues of the day or things going around in Christianity. And you did have stuff to say, and it wasn't what they expected, I think.
Yeah.
And I feel like you needed some sort of platform to be able to talk about grown-up things. Is that true?
That is also true, yeah. I was doing a lot of speaking on college campuses and found it very enjoyable, particularly if it went to Q&A. So I thought, maybe there's a way. Why are you laughing? Why was that funny?
No, I'm just imagining you enjoying hearing college students' questions.
Oh.
Which he did.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so Kaitlyn, what did you think after we recorded your interview? Did you have any thoughts? Did you say, that was a life-changing experience? I hope they call back very soon.
Well, my memory of it is that after, because you were interviewing me, which I didn't know was not normal.
Right.
And then afterwards, you said, we were just talking about this, you said, a lot of authors are not good talkers, but you're a good talker. Do you want to keep doing this? And I was like, yeah. And then I thought, he's never going to ask me to do it again. But then you did, so.
And when did you realize you were completely getting sucked into the orbit of glory?
We really did turn up the heat slowly.
Yeah, it was like
Frog in the kettle.
At first, it was like, sometimes do you want to come? And then when we did the episode after January 6th,
Yeah.
you started asking a lot more, and I was like, oh, okay, this is happening. Yeah.
And that was also the season where Christian was traveling a lot, and there were too many weeks where it was just me and Phil.
Yeah,
and
we're
that's
boring.
Never good.
We are boring.
I can imagine. It doesn't sound good.
Yeah, and just throwing in Ed Stetzer instead of you or Christian is not the same. It's just not the same. Hi, Ed. Happy birthday, Ed.
We do miss you, and we love it when you're on the
Yeah,
podcast.
and you can come back sometime. You can definitely come back sometime. So when was the first time you realized some people knew you from the podcast?
So I'm sure it happened before this, but when I moved to Durham this summer, it was like everyone I met listened to the Holy Post.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So every first conversation I had with people, it would start out kind of normal, and we would just like talk like normal people, and then a few minutes in, they would go, "So, how is Phil Vischer?
Ooh, that's good.
What is he like?"
That's a little creepy.
Yeah.
What's the most outrageous way you have used that to your advantage?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
I have an answer to that for me. I have an answer.
You got to be very careful where you disclose that information, because it could close some doors as quickly as it opens them.
probably just like truly people my age. I mean, there were so many things. I was like promoting my first book.
Yeah.
And people sort of think that's cool when you're young. But when they heard that I had done the VeggieTales guys podcast, that won me so many more points than anything else I could do.
Do you think it helped get more interviews for the book? Did it help
Probably.
the book? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Christian Taylor.
Yeah.
What's the most outrageous thing you've done with your Holy Post notoriety? I'm almost afraid to ask. And do we need to apologize to France in any way?
No. I mean, you guys already know this. I mean, first of all, anytime I go anywhere, I always say, "Hey, Holy Posters, if you're if you want to meet up, come meet me." So every city I've gone into, I've actually met our listeners and our followers. So that's been super awesome. But more than that, just about everybody that works for me at Documentary First is a Holy Post podcast listener.
Oh, that's true.
So I think that's been incredibly helpful that, I connected with some amazing people and have a team because of the podcast.
Fun when there's a platform where you can find like-minded people and then figure out what you want to do together.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to do something. We've got coming up after this break. We've got a top 10 list. There's so much coming up, but
Don't go away.
I don't know if it was 6 or 7 years ago. Let me think back. It was 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago. I came across a story about a turtle. And I hadn't done a whole lot of stories about turtles on the show. It was mostly about religious history and Christianity and stuff like that. But this was amazing because
I remember this.
I learned that turtles can breathe through their butts.
Yes.
And I thought that was extraordinary. So I brought the story on, and everyone was just as excited as I was.
Not me. I was not that
That was
excited.
obvious from the get-go. They were just as excited as I was. And when I ended the story, I don't know where it came from, but I said something to the effect of, well, this is in from our Department of Butt News. And then once you've kind of planted that seed in your brain, you start seeing butt news everywhere. There's just butt news all over. Right, Kaitlyn?
No.
So it's our 500th show. We can't just ignore the legacy.
Oh no! Do you have a butt news story?
We can ignore it.
We can totally
100%
ignore it. Now it's 2 against 1.
Oh no, it's 2 against 2 because Skye is totally with me.
We need to really get Skye
Now it's
on our
3
side.
against 1. He is on our side.
No.
You
Am I?
You don't like the butt news.
It depends on the news.
And now it's time for news of the butt.
This is extraordinary. Do not look at it. Do not
right.
read ahead. You used to do that. It really annoyed
know.
me. I would
Oh,
pull
I'm
up a butt
sorry.
news story and you would lean over and look at it, and then you wouldn't be shocked when I read it because you read it over my shoulder. That's why I was better on Zoom. You go away and be on Zoom so you can't look over my shoulder. Okay, this is really short. It's a scientific study, and it's amazing. And they whenever they do a scientific paper to summarize a study, there's kind of an executive summary at the top, the main bullet points. This one has
They lead with the headline.
This one has 3 main bullet points, which are, I think, the most extraordinary bullet points from a scientific study I've ever heard.
You're acting like they split the atom here.
That cannot be true.
Okay, bullet point number 1. These are the highlights of this study. An ethnographic account states that an Inuit man made a knife from his own frozen feces.
What?
Okay, a functioning knife.
Wait, what's that first word
An
you said?
ethnographic study.
Yeah,
It
what's
means
that?
it's folklore or a tale that's been passed down orally.
What does functioning mean?
Means it
In
works.
this case,
Means he could
Like,
cut.
what-
He could cut
how do
things
they
with
know
it.
that?
He could cut things. That's the story. That's point 1.
It's the knife and the cheese. That's pretty amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, point 1. An ethnographic account states an Inuit man made a knife from his own frozen feces. Point 2. We experimentally tested knives manufactured from frozen human feces.
Oh my
Please
goodness.
tell me,
Can we
tell
stop?
me the third point is this was a government-funded study.
Point 3. Knives manufactured from frozen human feces do not work.
That
End of the study.
Shocker.
That's the study. Isn't that beautiful?
So in other words,
We went, we tried, it didn't work.
so if you are in the wild in a very cold environment and you need
Yeah.
a knife,
Yeah,
don't
it's
try
not
to
gonna
use your poop.
It's not going to work. Even if you've heard that old Inuit story about the man who survived with his poop knife,
Now the question is,
it's not true. It didn't
if
work.
it didn't work, it probably wasn't really a poop knife. It was probably something else that
Here's
he
the
was
thing.
using it for. What would that be?
It was a legend.
Look at, hold on.
Oh, it was a legend?
Can we back up here for a second?
Yes.
If you are an Inuit in the far north
Yes.
and it's really cold enough for your poop to freeze hard enough
Yes.
to try to make a knife out of, I'm guessing there's also ice around.
Good point, Skye.
Wouldn't you try to make a knife out of ice before you try to make a knife out of poop?
Yeah, but you couldn't really see the knife, so the ice around the poop would be clear enough to be able to use it.
Maybe the handle of the knife could be poop, but not the blade.
Okay, I can't believe I've disintegrated into this.
This-
You've sucked me in, Phil.
I know. I can't believe that you're carrying it along. I was going to say this is the Hi, Kaitlyn.
I'm just so upset. I'm so upset that we have real problems in the world.
Hi, Kaitlyn.
And some money was used to discover
3
nothing.
points. 3 points summarizing our exhaustive study. A story says a man made a poop knife. We tried to make a poop knife. You cannot make a poop
You
knife.
didn't have to repeat it. We remembered. We knew.
The 3 points were enough.
This is like Mythbusters.
It is. And this has been the news of the butt.
This has been the news of the butt.
I started listening to this podcast a long time ago, primarily while I was shoveling horse poop, and that was before News with the Butt, so I was kind of a pioneer. And ever since then, I've appreciated the humor, the lightheartedness, the honesty, and the thoughtfulness of Christians who aren't just checking all the boxes of a particular tribe, but are instead thinking about the boxes and trying to do and talk about what's right. And having listened to, I guess, hundreds of hours of this and had online interactions or email interactions with several of the holy posters, I got to say, I see the fruit of the Spirit here, and I see a sense of humor that is active but not cruel. So it's been wonderful finding this little tribe, and I hope you keep holy posting for a very long time.
Hi, this is Jere Witherspoon calling in from Lafayette, Oregon. I absolutely love the show. I've been listening for a little over a year now, and I've also started to go back and listen to the archives. I learned so much. I've shared your podcast with so many people and reference it almost on a daily basis. I love you guys. I've learned so much. I laugh. I don't think I've ever cried, but I certainly have learned a lot. Keep up the great work, and I love supporting you on Patreon. Have a great day.
The Holy Post podcast is funded by listeners like you who support us on Patreon. This episode is also supported by Abide, the #1 Christian meditation app. Do you get anxious? Have a hard time calming down? It's hard to calm down just by telling yourself to calm down, like telling yourself not to think about elephants. See, you're thinking about elephants. That's why lots of people are turning to meditation apps. But what are you meditating on? Fill your mind with the Bible with the Abide meditation app. Abide users report less stress, lower levels of anxiety and depression, and better sleep. And for a limited time, listeners of the Holy Post will get 25% off a premium subscription when you visit abide.co/holypost. So get started now with 25% off a premium subscription by downloading the Abide app. You'll get additional stories and meditations, premium music, soothing sounds, and more. Support the Holy Post and get 25% off by going to abide.co/holypost. That's abide.co/holypost to download the Abide app and get 25% off your premium subscription. And now, back to the show.
For this 500th episode of The Holy Post, and to thank all of you for making it possible, we've got 3 special announcements. First, there is brand new 500th episode Holy Post merch available for sale right now on our website, and it was designed by one of you. A bunch of you submitted ideas, but we picked one winning design, and it was submitted by Ellie Kleinsasser. So thanks, Ellie, and go check out that merch at holypost.com. Second, on many episodes, we record a bonus segment exclusively for our Patreon supporters. But for this episode, we've created something really special, and we're making it available to everyone. Our own Jason Cinnamon Roll Rugg and our production assistant Julie Betcher have created a trivia contest to see which Holy Post co-host knows the most about the history of the show. The trivia game was a ton of fun, it got kind of competitive, and it was a photo finish, so be sure to check out the video, which is linked below in our show notes. Finally, to celebrate our 10th anniversary, we are excited to announce that we're launching the Holy Post Book Club. Throughout 2022, and in partnership with our friends at InterVarsity Press, we are updating our Patreon tiers and offering free books to our supporters. Each quarter, we're selecting one IVP book that fits a topic we care about here on the Holy Post. We'll be interviewing the author, and then depending on your Patreon support tier, you'll either get a free ebook or a free print copy of the book from IVP. All the details are posted at patreon.com/holypost, and you can update your support level anytime between now and April 15th in order to get in on this book club. Again, that's patreon.com/holypost, or go to holypost.com and click the support button to learn more.
Hello, Holy Post. Happy 500th episode. My name is Quinn. I'm from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. I've been a fan of the Holy Post for a while now. You guys were kind of what helped me to hold on to Jesus through a time of deconstruction or making my faith my own, or whatever you want to call it. I think one of my favorite moments from the Holy Post was when Plinky Pete got destroyed and Skye and Phil got into a bit of a tussle about that. One of my favorite episodes, there's a lot of really good ones, but one that stands out is the one 172 with Bob Roberts talking about how we can partner with non-Christians to accomplish the goals of the kingdom. My favorite guests would have to be Preston Sprinkle, N.T. Wright, and David French, so French Fridays are kind of my jam. I really appreciate that you guys brought Kaitlyn on as a co-host. It's really nice to have somebody from my generation that I'm able to relate to, and she is just super brilliant. So thanks so much, guys.
Holy Post team, happy 500 episodes. My name is David Jacola. I listen from Central Florida, and I want to say congratulations. 500 episodes is a really big deal, and I'm so happy for you guys. And I also want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your joy, your laughter, your thoughts with the world, in the community around you guys. I've learned about politics and butt news, which is a little redundant. And I want to say thank you. And also, congratulations. I'm looking forward to the next 500 episodes of The Holy Post.
Okay, we're back from the break, and now it is time to count down our top 10. We've been doing this for 10 years. 10 years of evangelical history have slipped under the bridge like a river full of tears while we've been standing on the bridge commenting as flotsam and jetsam.
Poo sticks. We've been playing poo sticks over the bridge.
What is that?
What is that?
You mean poo?
You guys don't know what poo sticks are?
No.
Poo sticks are what Pooh and Christopher Robin used to play.
Pooh with an H.
Your mind is the news of the butt all the time.
That was a close one. Okay, top 10 stories of the last 10 years that are themes, things that have caught our eyes. We're going to go through them quickly. It's a top 10 list. We can talk about each one for like 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 4.
Should I do a timer?
It can be like that game with those two sports guys, Tony Kornheiser.
Everybody needs to say something about each story.
Oh, goodness. I was just going to be quiet the whole time.
Number 10, big stories of the last 10 years in evangelical history. Number 10, the many, many megachurch scandals. Willow Creek, Mars Hill, Harvest Bible Chapel, etc.
What's the other, the song, Hillsong?
Hillsong, oh yeah. Wow. That's bad too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, Kaitlyn.
That's a bad thing.
Is it?
We should add like Ravi Zacharias. There's a lot of just celebrity pastor scandals.
Yeah, a lot of. Right? Well, we're talking about that on another one of the top 10 stories.
There's some overlap.
Yeah, there's some overlap. So it has been a decade of evangelical leaders that we looked up to suddenly not looking so hot. Mm-mm. Yeah.
Well, and also a conversation about a growth mindset that could create a megachurch, but bring all of these really negative things along with it.
Right. Not all growths are good.
Yeah.
Like tumors.
That's what my doctor told me.
Well, and I think the fall of all of those things is an incredible blessing.
It is.
And I think it's revealed a lot about who we are. It's given Skye a lot to write about.
Yeah.
And it's given us a lot to talk about on the podcast. But that's not really why it's a blessing. It's really a blessing because we get to see the brokenness that we are. We can't, be so puffed up and proud that.
That's true. That's true.
I think what's been interesting to me about all these scandals is it's provoked a debate about what's the real issue here? Is it that we just have a lot of individually flawed leaders of bad character, or is there something systemic about the way we have structured ministry, particularly in megachurches, that lends itself to this kind of thing happening over and over again? And there's a divide there. I tend to believe, obviously, flawed character is a factor, but we really need to re-examine the way we structure ministries, especially these larger ones that create celebrity pastors, which I think is bad for the church. It's bad for the pastors. It's bad for their families. So for me, that's sort of the redemptive angle on this, is it's making us rethink our systems.
Do you think we're going to see more of this in the next 5 years, or has everyone learned their lesson? Do you think we've all learned?
No, we will see more.
Okay, all right.
I mean, you would have thought that we would have learned back in the 70s with Tammy Faye Baker and Jim Baker. And
we didn't.
We didn't learn.
We didn't. Okay, that was number 10. Number 9, the 9th top story of the last 10 years. The impact, this was one of my suggestions, by the way, so I take credit for this one. The impact of the charismatic prophecy movement on American politics and culture. Now, we've had an American prophecy movement since the early 20th century and late 19th century, so that's not new. It came with premillennial dispensationalism and fun of reading your Schofield Study Bible. But we haven't had national politics affected by prophecy like we've seen in the last 10 years, where prophets are in the White House hanging out with the president.
Can you use air quotes when you say that?
Yeah. Okay. Prophets. Prophets.
Right.
And social media has allowed platforming of air quote prophetic voices. Because we love people from Nostradamus on. We love people who think they can see the future. So if you think this is going to happen next year because of Trump and Clinton and Russia, you've got an audience for it.
Well, even you can be an octopus prophet and you get an audience on social media.
That's true. Right? The octopus that picks the Super Bowl winner,
right? And like the World Cup and all. Kaitlyn, you just watched a movie. on your way over here.
Yeah, I did.
Can you share
on the plane ride here? I watched The Trump Prophecy, which is a supposedly real story about a man who had a series of visions in 2011 that Trump would become president.
Yeah.
And it is incredible how they both like dramatize that narrative, and then at the end they just have all of these like talking heads that are people that sometimes come from cessationist backgrounds that would not be down with a prophecy about Trump.
Right.
But because it confirms their political leanings already, especially their emphasis on Israel, they, misquoted a bunch of cherry-picked Bible verses to support this. They're on board with the prophecy.
Here's the thing. I have not seen the film, but let's give the guy the benefit of the doubt and say he did have prophetic dreams that Trump would be president. That in and of itself doesn't mean it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the movie framed it as this is a good God-ordained blessing.
Yeah, you're not sure the whole time. It's sort of like, he might not be my favorite, but he's going to be president. But by the end, you're full in.
Because there's a lot of prophetic visions in the Bible that are horrible.
Yeah.
Right? They're judgments.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just interesting that they would take it as a positive thing.
Yeah.
All right, Christian.
Well, the only thought that I had was, what if there was a prophecy that he would be president, and that really was true, and it came to be, but it was really to...
It was a judgment.
Well, or
a revealing.
It was a cleansing or a dividing. One of the things that I think has been so fascinating is to see how Christian communities have sort of divided along these lines.
Yeah.
And so you've got, one side that's very nationalist, Christian nationalist focused, and another that's saying we need to really see what Jesus calls us to be. So it could have been,
All right. Okay. Out of time. Next story, number 8, is just a list of people that have confused me over the last 10 years. Jere Falwell Jr., Eric Metaxas, World Magazine, not a people. Christian Post, not a people. But it's these organizations that and people that all took a hard right turn over the last 10 years in ways that just confused me. And that's all I have to say about that. How many times have we mentioned Jere Falwell Jr. or Eric Metaxas over the last 10 years?
Yeah. But this links obviously to the Trump phenomenon.
Yes.
These are people who, when Trump came to the surface and became the nominee of the Republican Party in 2016, they decided we're going to go full in with Trump and do it explicitly because of their Christian convictions. That's what was surprising, given his moral character and or lack thereof.
Well, that backs up what I just said. You see,
Yeah,
Trump came along, and you had all of these people go to
the prophecy came true.
Right.
I think one of the most emblematic images of the last 10 years for evangelical history for me was Eric Metaxas running backwards in penny loafers after having punched a Trump protester
on Pennsylvania
Avenue in Washington, D.C. If you say, what happened to the evangelical thought leadership in the last 10 years, that's the image that pops into my head.
You know what really describes that well, too? I looked at this list and thought Jere Falwell, because I went to Liberty, and one of his favorite things, one of his favorite things to say, I don't want to plug Liberty, one of his favorite things to say was to quote Jesus saying, "Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's." And what he meant by that was, in the political realm, you just do what you got to do, and you don't follow Christian morals. In your personal life, you might do that, but in the political world, there's just a different set, and that fits the Metaxas punching someone, and it fits all of these people to say,
"Give to the pool boy what's the pool boy's."
Oh no, you don't have to follow the same rules, and you have a business mindset about it that says whatever is profitable or secures me is what ultimately is good.
Okay, and you could say that with authority because you went to Liberty, so you know.
Yeah.
But that mindset, though, beyond Jere Falwell Jr., it's very prevalent in a lot of evangelical communities, which is compartmentalization.
Yeah.
Where, for example, you hear people say all the time, we don't talk about politics in our church. It's a way of compartmentalizing, saying there's this religious category of stuff that God cares about, and then there's these other categories that he doesn't, and we can do whatever we want over there. And that's a really unhealthy and ungodly and unbiblical way of looking at life and the world.
Politics is Bruno. Yes.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
It also, I hear them talk a lot about how the ends justifies the means.
Right.
There's just a lot of that in the conversation as well.
All right. All right. That was number 8.
This segment is being brought to you by Liberty University.
No, it's
Number 7.
I was waiting for that.
Number 7. The hashtag Church2 movement. Skye, that was one of your contributions. Would you like to explain what that is?
I didn't create Church2. I suggested it on our list.
Yeah. I hope people didn't misunderstand what I meant by that.
So following Trump's election, the Me Too movement emerged, both because of his history of abusing women and then Harvey Weinstein and all the Hollywood nonsense that was going on and people coming forward and unmasking the shenanigans that went on in a lot of those places. And then some Christian women started more vocally and publicly talking about abuse they had experienced in the church and from Christian leaders, and that became the Church2 movement hashtag, which is just grown and grown and grown, and it's the Southern Baptists have uncovered all kinds of terrible abuse, which became a huge factor in their internal church politics. And this is a big story. I mean, it's an ongoing, and it's one of those things I think would be inappropriate to say it started in 2016 because this has been going on forever, but it's come into the light more.
Yeah, and it's so much more. I mean, it wasn't in the light at all, because I just remember thinking growing up, wow, those Catholics sure have a hard time with sexual abuse. I'm glad my tradition is really good at not doing bad things. I remember thinking that because we weren't in the news.
Well, and now the news spreads like wildfire on social media. And so really that does enable the spreading of those stories.
And you also have individual activists or journalists like Julie Royce or Rachel Del Hollander, is that her name? That are just going out there and saying, this is a safe place to bring your story. This is a safe place to bring your story.
And connecting what's happening in churches and communities with bad theology. Like Rachel Den Hollander has done a good job of describing for people not only bad views about gender and about women that can perpetuate abuse in churches, but then the way that we have a real misunderstanding of reconciliation and true justice. Like she presented a paper at an evangelical, academic conference to say like this is important for us to get the theology of reconciliation, of repentance, of justice correctly for churches to respond. Abuse has already happened in churches. They have to find a way to respond to it in a way that's healthy.
One of the more interesting aspects of this, too, was early on in the Church2 movement, it was very closely linked to complementarianism, this belief that where you have a highly patriarchal church system, there's going to be more abuse of women. And then the Bill Hybels story broke and Willow Creek, which was very egalitarian, and you saw the same dynamic. So it rose above just your theology of the role of women in the church and realize this, we can't, like you did, Phil, well, we're Protestant, we're not Catholic, this doesn't happen here. You can't say, we're egalitarian, we value the role of women in our churches. It doesn't happen here. Right. It does.
Right. There's a horrific story Julie Royce just put out yesterday about John MacArthur.
I didn't see that.
Publicly shaming a woman because she wouldn't get back together with her abusive husband in 2002, I think. And the woman is finally talking about it because her kids are grown now. They're no longer minors, so she's telling her story. An elders board saying, we do not approve of you leaving your abusive husband. You need to forgive him and you need to move back in. And that's not a... Not a good thing. Number 6, conspiracy theories taking over the church. QAnon, anti-vax, you name it. If it's in the culture, it's probably in the church, and it may be even more in the church than in the culture.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Is it's the church and churches become super spreader locations of this nonsense. So
in more ways than one, literally and figuratively.
And that's what's scary about it. Yes, this has always been in the culture, the internet, things like that, but churches have become bases where it really ferments.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything on that, Kate?
And it hurts our witness. Like when we have this, inability to deal theologically in our communities with what is true and what is not true, that continues to hurt kind of truly wild claims that we are making about the universe and the life and death and resurrection of Christ lose a lot of credibility.
If I believe Tom Hanks is part of a cabal drinking children's blood,
not good.
It makes it harder for me to tell people about Jesus.
Weirdly enough.
Ed Stetzer wrote a really good piece about this a couple of years ago.
He did.
Right?
Yeah,
the importance of truth. Yep.
It's our second Ed Stetzer call out. Hey, Ed. Hope you're doing well.
I'm just trying to redeem your last one.
We're keeping you in our hearts, Ed.
Thank you. Number 5, mistrust of government and science. Now, this is
That's related to the one before.
It is. This is not a new development. We've been skeptical of science ever since Darwin came on the scene and told us we came from monkeys. That was concerning. But it's like the stakes have gotten higher.
Well, when the pandemic hit, those theoretical disagreements became very practical.
Yeah.
And lives were on the line. And that's what, you reap what you sow.
The interesting thing is, though, we don't seem to have moved away from that, really. You know, there are two camps in this pandemic that are firmly entrenched.
Right.
You know, you love your neighbor, and so you're going to wear your mask, or you're going to, social distance, or if you wear your mask, you are not loving me. Take your mask off right now and, come join us here. And, it just doesn't seem like they're coming closer together with that.
No, and there have always been Christian traditions that, rejected parts of medicine. As the Jehovah's Witnesses that who doesn't do blood transfusions?
That's Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, I thought so. And that's been an issue in clashes over the health of a child who needs a blood transfusion. But it always seemed fringe. So it was always a fringe conversation. But suddenly it's millions of Christians saying, no, I'm not going to take this health advice. No, I'm not going to listen to your doctor because I found someone on Facebook.
Yeah, but what's kind of weird is when you look at whether it's Christian Science or Jehovah's Witnesses, where they have. I disagree with them, obviously, but they have developed a theological framework for justifying those positions. What's weird about what happened in recent years is you had Christians who otherwise had no problem with modern medicine suddenly saying, I won't take this vaccine, or I won't wear a mask, or I don't believe there's a virus, or it's as bad as people are saying. And it's like, you don't have any theological foundation for those views, and you don't even have any life experience for those views because you probably have had 20 or 30 vaccines in your life.
Right.
But all of a sudden you've changed your tune. That's what's weird.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, and it's just politically motivated. It's another reminder of how things that shouldn't be connected to each other. There's nothing inherently conservative or Republican about not wearing a mask or not getting vaccinated. But once it takes on the kind of ethos of a party or of a particular politician or of a Facebook group that you're a part of, then people have really strong political motivations that don't actually make any sense for why they wouldn't get vaccinated or wear a mask.
And then it becomes a club.
Right.
So, either you're in my club, you believe what I believe, and if you believe this, I'm going to have to believe all of it, or else you're out of the club.
You're either in the Sharks or the Jets.
Right.
It's a tribal identity.
You just need to get together and dance instead of fighting. Sharks and the Jets are the gangs.
I know. I just watched it. They didn't make up by dancing. They never.
Nobody gets hurt if we just dance.
Someone's going to get hurt if I dance.
Okay. Kaitlyn, you should write a book about politics and how it can interfere with our theology.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, number 4. This is a big one. Now we're getting to the top 4. This is the top 4, everybody. Woo-hoo! Hey, before we do the top 4, let's take a break and listen to some more voicemails from our listeners.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael May, and I've been listening to The Holy Post almost since the beginning. I forget which episode you were on when I started, but it was a low enough number that I was able to go back through the previous episodes and catch up pretty quickly. My fondest memories of those days was Phil singing the theme song live every episode, often in the voice of a VeggieTales or What's in the Bible character, and of course making up a recap song on the spot at the end of each episode. But even while the show was being funny, what I appreciated most was the thought you all gave to the issues of the day and the appropriate way for Christians to respond to them. That included thoughtful guests too, and you guys have turned me on to so many books and resources that have had a direct impact on my marriage, my parenting, my church life, and my own personal walk with God. As the show has grown, it's changed formats and become more polished, and that's all good too, but you've kept the core of what makes the show special. I deeply appreciate it, and I'm always eager to tell my friends about it. Congratulations on 500 episodes. I pray that there will be many more to come.
Hi, this is Catherine from the Seattle area. I'm 18 years old, and I've been listening to the Holy Post for a little under a year now. It's become a regular part of my life, and as a young Christian, I really appreciate seeing different Christians interact with the world faithfully and in nuanced ways. I find the show really comforting to come back to every week because it reassures me that there are Christ-loving people still out there committed to serving Jesus as genuine, unique human beings, even in the midst of everything. I love that you guys aren't afraid to laugh and aren't afraid to admit that sometimes you don't know. Thank you so much for all you do. P.S. I am a News of the Butt sympathizer. I quite enjoyed that segment.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm from Great Falls, Montana. I discovered the Holy Post in the middle of 2020 when I was beginning to feel really discouraged by the division that I was seeing among my Christian friends, and it felt like a breath of fresh air to listen to Phil and Skye and Christian talk about the issues of the day. And I felt really encouraged to know that other people were thinking some of the same things I was thinking, and have just really appreciated listening to their conversations ever since then. And they always make me think, and the interviews are always really wonderful too. And I've bought lots of books because of interviews of authors on the Holy Post. So thanks so much for everything you do, guys.
Hi, my name is Ethan Sayre. I'm from Roseville, California. I grew up in a conservative household. I watched VeggieTales all my life. I still do with my children, even today. But a couple years ago, I started to think, okay, Christians are backwards. They're mean. They're vicious. They elect bad people. I want no part of that. I don't want to be on the bad side. I was very close to throwing it all away. But then I found this podcast, and I found a place to belong, a place to call home. And I learned that there are other ways to think. There are other types of Christians. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, all of you.
The Holy Post is brought to you by our listeners who support us on Patreon. This episode is also sponsored by our friends at Faithful Counseling. Hey, are you under much stress? Do you ever post things on Twitter or Facebook that you later regret? Am I projecting? We all face stress and anxiety, and sometimes it's really nice to talk to someone who can actually help. Faithful Counseling is a Christian counseling service with more than 3,000 licensed therapists across all 50 states. And you don't have to go into an office. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions, or even chat and text with your therapist. With expertise in depression, stress, anxiety, trauma, family conflicts, and more. Not happy with your counselor? Ask for a new one at any time. Financial aid is available for those who qualify. Plus, Holy Post listeners get 10% off your first month from our sponsor, Faithful Counseling. What have you got to lose? Give it a try. Go to faithfulcounseling.com/holypost. Just fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs, and you'll get matched with a counselor you'll love. That's faithfulcounseling.com/holypost. And now, back to the show.
We're back for number 4, Trump and the exposing of cultural Christianity. So the story isn't just Trump. The story is the rifts that were revealed by Trump. Yeah, kind of like the pandemic, where we saw people just lining up, for and against, and then looking at each other like each other was absolutely insane. How could you not be for this guy who values what we value and will defend us? How could you be for this guy who shares none of our ethical convictions and is a hideous person?
Right. In this sense, Trump was apocalyptic in the true sense of the word, meaning to reveal or unveil.
Was that the prophecy that you had about him? Guy?
So he revealed what was
already there.
Yeah, exactly. And under the surface, and just under the surface, but in a really shocking way that I think a lot of us were not ready for.
I remember saying in the very beginning when Trump came along that what I was hearing was what I had been hearing all my life in the South, people say quietly under their breath to people they were related to. But now they were saying it out loud to everyone else and boldly. And I do remember that was a seismic shift, I think, in our culture.
Well, what I think the other part of the story that's interesting to me is it's one thing if what we've always believed is just revealed by this guy and our affinity for this guy. But what we actually found is that people change their beliefs to align with this guy. So we went in 20 years from being the group most likely to value personal integrity and morality in public leaders to being the religious group least likely to value that, in 20 years. And that's just an insane shift of value for Christians.
So what it ultimately revealed then is for a lot of white evangelicals, their convictions were primarily built on their political views, not their religious views. That's what was revealed by Trump.
Yeah.
And so when the political norms shifted, so did they.
Right.
Trump made Bill Clinton look like a saint. You know,
Well,
like, I
he's
mean,
still kind of gross.
we thought that he was, you know, we thought that he was like the worst thing.
Yeah, he's the devil.
He's
We've
the
never had a
devil.
worse person in the White House than this guy.
And morality was the most important thing
Right.
during that time.
Family values. We're the family values voters.
Yes.
How could we vote for a guy who cheats on his wife?
And I just don't understand how that got flipped on its head.
We have an existential crisis. We are under attack. The world hates us. They want to take away our Bibles and make us wear masks, and they don't like us anymore.
So it's okay. It doesn't matter. My dad said, I don't need a pastor for a president.
A lot of people
yeah.
At least Trump paid for the women he slept with.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go to the next story after.
Wait, can I add one more
As
thing?
opposed to who?
Bill Clinton.
Oh, okay. He didn't sleep with her, technically.
Well, it depends on what you call sex. It's what depends on what your definition is.
Done.
Okay, anyway, what were you going to say,
one more
Kaitlyn?
thing about Trump, which
Please.
is just to say that everything you all have described, especially you, Christian, I think it so articulates the strange experience for a lot of younger evangelicals, which is feeling like I was in Sunday school and we learned all these verses about how we care for people and why, morality in leaders matters. And we heard our parents be really upset about Clinton, and we kept reading our Bibles because they told us to, and then had a bunch of really prominent leaders act in really horrific ways or justify people acting in really horrific ways. And it felt like we've been holding on to the things you told us to hold on to. We've been reading our Bibles. We're trying to stay faithful. And yet we're being treated as if we are the ones that have gone astray.
Right.
And that feels really not only like a betrayal from leaders that we trusted, but also then just really disorienting to go like, oh, I thought I knew who to talk to and who to trust, and now I don't. And that's scary.
I think Russell Moore said something along the lines of, it isn't that young people no longer believe the faith, it's that they no longer believe that we believe the faith.
Yes.
Right.
And that's
scary.
Right.
That is scary. Okay, so that's a big one. But they get even bigger. They get even...
Because we're on 3 now?
Number 3, deconstruction shows excitement or emotion, commonly set apart from sentence by an exclamation point or by comma when the feeling's not as strong.
What are you talking about?
That's the Schoolhouse Rock. Nice job, Phil. I loved it. It was great.
I don't remember that
I think they must be too young.
I know Schoolhouse Rock.
Interjection.
Interjection
shows excitement or emotion.
I don't remember that one.
Commonly said apart from sentence by an exclamation point or by comma when the feeling's not as strong. So when you're happy, hooray, or sad, or excited, yee, or glad, yay, or an interjection starts the sentence right.
Ta-da.
The score was tied at 7-all. Okay, I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Deconstruction shows excitement or emotion. It's a hot term. Everybody's talking about deconstruction. Everybody's trying to decide if it's the end of the church or something we've all been doing all along, and it just didn't have a cute name.
Yes.
Skye.
I think it's the latter. It's like road rage. Road rage has always happened.
Yeah.
But then somebody
didn't
came
have a cute name.
Somebody came along with a cute alliterated
I just
name.
don't understand. Why is it bad? Why is it bad?
Because you're trying to turn people into progressives.
Because you're telling people to rethink something that some people think should never be rethought.
Yeah, because...
But they've already rethunk it.
Because we are children of the fundamentalist modernist controversy, and we are on the fundamentalist side of the family, and part of that was drawing clear lines around orthodoxy and saying this stuff, if you give up on one of these things in this fence, the whole thing starts to fall down and you'll end up an atheist. It's the descent of the modernist.
You know what it reminds me of?
What?
It's like, have you ever, like, when you were a kid, found an animal outside that was like injured?
A squirrel, yes.
And then you bring it into the house.
Yes.
I don't like
I put it in a cage.
Right, and a parent who has some wisdom will say, whatever you do, don't give the animal a name. Because the moment you give the animal a name, you are stuck with that animal. It's now a pet, right? And that's
did this happen to you?
I don't know.
Oh, I think it did.
But like, because you attach yourself to it, then it has an identity, and you
so we gave this a name, and now we can't let go of
exactly. So there's some people who are like, this has always been happening. People have always gone through a process of rethinking their inherited beliefs and unbundling them and reconfiguring them and owning them for themselves or abandoning them. That's always happened. But now, since we call it deconstruction, now it takes on a life of its own, and people have a target, and there's something to get upset about, and it's something to get defensive about, and now we have a fight.
We get something we can make hashtags about.
Exactly.
Once you hashtag it, like the Black Lives Matter movement,
Or
once you
defund
hashtag
the police.
it,
Or
now,
Me Too.
Yeah, now people line up on one side or
Exactly.
the other and say, I'm anti hashtag BLM.
Right.
So that's what happened. We made okay, so we just need to calm down and say, hey, everybody. Now, what about the people who say that this movement is being driven by activist voices from outside the church, like, who aren't pastors or theologians, like Kristen Kobes-Dumay and Jesus and John Wayne and Beth Allison Barr and the Making of Biblical Womanhood and Jamar Tisby pointing out that there's racism.
But
they're trying to destroy the faith.
They would be doing their scholarly work with or without the hashtag deconstruction. Like they're just doing what academics do in studying history and scripture and culture and politics.
They have an agenda. They have a bone to pick. They have an
agenda as academics.
Okay.
So I don't know. I find the whole thing kind of ridiculous.
Okay.
We
Kaitlyn?
also have to know that the weird thing about the anti-deconstruction people is that on one hand, that's a mixed group too, just like the deconstruction people is a mixed group.
Right.
The anti-deconstruction people include people who have had the heartbreaking experience of seeing someone they know start questioning things, and that be a terrifying, emotionally taxing experience, and don't want people to go through something like that. And then sometimes have seen people that they love leave the faith. And that was heartbreaking and difficult. And so they're anti-deconstruction because it reminds them of this awful thing. It also includes people, I think, who in an effort to preserve their own power don't want people reading historians or sociologists or even just theologians that think differently than them, because as long as you can tell them there are only these set safe sources, you have control over them and you can kind of keep the power that you have. But those two motivations are so different, and that group includes both of those kinds of people.
Yeah, we tend to bundle too many people into the same groups to make the group seem bigger and scarier.
Yeah.
This group is more of a threat because it includes those people and those people.
Can I just...
Yes.
I was just going to say, if there are people in your family, if you're listening to this, and they are quote unquote deconstructing, I would say encourage them, because I've watched some of my own family members go through this, some of my friends, and I think it's so refreshing to see people that are kind of saying, you know what? I don't know that I believe that entire basket of stuff that I was given before. And I want to figure out what I really do think and I really do believe. And I think that's the beginning of actually having a relationship with Christ. And so I do want to encourage you, if you're thinking that way, or if you have people in your family thinking that way, it isn't a bad thing. I think deconstruction can be a blessing.
Amen, sister. Okay, we're up to number 2.
Yay.
You know, the number 2 story of the last 10 years in the evangelical world, according to the Holy Post podcast.
According to Phil.
According to I asked for input on my ordering of the stories, and I didn't get any feedback.
You didn't.
So it's all on me. The rise and fall of evangelical concern for racial justice. We became very concerned about racial justice for about 4 months. And we started reading books about it, and we started listening to podcasts about it, and we started listening to more diverse voices about it.
And we made movies about it. Well, you did.
I made some videos about it. Yeah. And then the empire struck back. There was a crackdown, and we weaponized the words woke and the term CRT to use against almost anything that involved racial justice. And we really made it hard to continue the conversation in the conservative white church.
Sadly.
Yeah,
and this was the topic of last week's podcast.
It was.
So you can go into it more in depth.
It's top of mind. But do you remember, I forget the year, it was definitely when Obama was president, and what's his name had that big show on Fox News.
What's his name? Glenn Beck?
Glenn Beck.
Yeah.
And he did an episode, and he said something along the lines of, if you hear your pastor say the words social justice, run away from your church.
Right.
Right. So at that point,
immediately all African Americans left their churches, because that's a tradition in the black church for 150 years.
Well, obviously he was speaking to a Fox News audience, which probably is predominantly conservative, white, Republican types.
Is it?
I think so. But anyway, I'm not sure he talked about race specifically at that time, but he was talking about social justice. And that, for me, was the first time I realized, there's like this huge backlash growing against the whole idea of justice. as a biblical concept in a Christian tradition, which is just absolutely insane, especially when you consider the fact that justice, the word, is synonymous with righteousness in Old and New Testament, and
all over the freaking
Bible. But I think Glenn Beck and some of that rhetoric back then was priming the pump for then racial justice being seen as an unbiblical, ungodly, Marxist, whatever. But it's been percolating for a while, and it's definitely gotten a lot hotter.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going away anytime soon either.
But there was a moment where some very mainstream conservative pastors were recommending, hey, let's read this book. Let's read this book, White Fragility by D'Angelo, or let's read this book and let's learn more. And now,
the new Jim Crow.
Yes, and now the way the backlash happened, I mean, some of those pastors, are being outed as, remember when you recommended this book, and we now know it's by this, anti-Western civilization, culture warrior. So pastors have had to kind of walk back even recommendations to explore different voices, because their congregations have been so turned against, the concept of social justice. I do love, by the way, if you have someone who says, I don't understand what you're saying biblical justice is and what you mean when you say justice, go find the Bible Project video about justice.
Absolutely.
And just watch that. It's very hard for anyone to say, I still don't get it, after they watch that video. And it is time. Do you know what's next?
Number one.
The number one biggest story of the Holy Post over the last 10 years. The term evangelical.
Yahoo!
Is it still a term? Does it mean anything? Is it salvageable?
I think that was one of the very first shows we did was with Oz Guinness.
Yes.
Remember this? We were sitting right over there and we talked about this very thing. Is this word...
We still haven't figured it out 10 years later. And that was pre-Trump. That was pre all this nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So Skye, have you come to any conclusions about the term evangelical?
I have. I'm still conflicted, but I'm thinking back to, I think Oz said this on our show, and I've talked to others who've said similar things, and it's given me pause because I don't like using the word.
Yeah.
Because it's so misunderstood in our context. However, I am convicted by the fact that the label evangelical is not an American identity.
Yeah.
It is a global identity, and there are evangelicals all around the world who hold to the historic theological definition of the word, and they still see it as a positive identity. And I know that, and I've engaged some of them, I know they take offense to the fact that the moment the word has become inconvenient for Americans, we want to abandon it.
Right.
And so it's, on one level, depending on my context, I won't use it because the person who hears it is going to misunderstand what I mean. They'll understand it as a political identity rather than a theological one. But on a global scale, it's still really, really good. And I don't want to distance myself from the global movement of evangelicalism as much as I want to distance myself from the American white politically charged version of it.
Right. A lot of American evangelicals are becoming British evangelicals, which has the name Anglican.
And
there's that movement. Kaitlyn, what do you think? You're young. You're younger than I am, right?
A little bit.
You're younger than I am. Do you use that word? Does it help you? Does it hurt you?
I actually use it a lot now because I'm in a mainline affiliated divinity school and I'm at a mainline church. And for them, yes, evangelical has lots of negative connotations, but it also is just like a helpful way to, express how I grew up. The other thing I think is really helpful, and Dan Stringer wrote a book on this that I think is also really helpful about evangelicalism. And his point was, we've sort of acted as if evangelicalism is like all kinds of identities that we've started to talk about as just labels. Like I can choose to identify this way or that way. And evangelicalism doesn't really work that way. I can say, oh, I don't like that word anymore, but I exist in evangelical institutions. I was shaped in evangelical institutions. They formed me. And for me to think that I have left evangelicalism because I don't use the word could get me into some real problems when I don't examine how it has impacted me, how it's shaped me in certain ways.
Right.
And also, it's just not very helpful for understanding our own responsibility to the traditions that we come from. So especially as a white Christian who grew up in evangelical context and understand them really well, I feel a certain level of responsibility to stay in those contexts. I'm getting trained in a strange point in my life right now where I'm not in as many of them, but the goal is to return to them because there are other people for whom it would be much more costly to spend the time in those places and try and change them. And I think it's a difficult, decision for everyone in terms of the church they want to stay at or the institution. But I think the first step for a lot of people is to realize it's not just a label I can put on or off. It has affected me.
Right.
And how I respond to that is complex. I might spend a lot of time immersing myself in another context instead, but that takes more work than just deciding I don't like the word.
Good word on that word. Bird. Are you an evangelical?
I've wrestled with this a lot.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, I am an evangelical.
Okay.
It's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just...
Sounds like you're going to a support group.
I am.
My name is Christian.
Isn't this my support group?
Evangelical.
I just can't get away from it. I believe these things. Like you, I was raised in the evangelical tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's been 13 days since I last confused tradition with theology.
True.
Yeah.
So I guess I am, but I think I'm careful about how I use that term and where I say it.
Okay. Cool. That was our top 10 biggest stories of the last 10 years. I hope you agree with the order that someone put them in who didn't get any feedback from his co-host, so he's pretty much out on a limb here all by himself. I used to do something where I would try to make up a song at the end of every show to summarize the show. So I decided I would write a song to summarize the last 10 years of all those stories and everything we've been through in the last 10 years in one song for evangelicals. And here it is.
Crazy, am I going crazy? Can I follow Jesus in a world that's going crazy? Theo Bros, Twitter wars, fighting, throwing axes. What the heck has happened to Eric Metaxas? Beth Moore, Russell Moore, many more out the door. Battle in the SBC. What kind of Christian will you be? Falwell Jr., really not cool boy. Running Christian colleges and hanging with the pool boy. Mars Hill Falls and Driscoll tumbles. Hot new podcast, document the stumbles. Crazy, am I going crazy? Can I follow Jesus in a world that's going crazy? Trump fights Russell Moore, tries to make him pay. Galley goes to war in Christianity Today. Jesus is the reason I don't have to wear a mask. And you're a tool of Satan if you have the nerve to ask. Michael Flynn wants one religion, glad it isn't his decision. Jefferson did not envision Christian history revision. Conversation awkward, Texas running backward. Charismatic mania, angels come from Africa. Party with the president who laughs at morality. We used to care, but now do we owe Clinton an apology? Pooping in the Capitol and praying in the chamber. Beating up democracy and all in Jesus' name. We're holding up the Bible as we pepper spray the cops. How did we get on this road, and tell me where it stops? Sure, I love my neighbors and I celebrate diversity, but first I need to check them all for wokeness and CRT. Brutum. Crazy, am I going crazy? Can I follow Jesus when the church is going crazy?
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for gracing us with this opportunity. Thank you. Let me take it back.
Okay, it's time to wrap it up. It's been 10 years. It's been 500 freaking episodes. What do you think we'll be talking about in 10 more years? Do you have any inklings of where the evangelical movement might be headed? Would you like to make a prediction?
Only one? One prediction?
Well, we don't have all day.
I don't know. You didn't tell us this in advance.
I know. That's why it's fun. I'll go first, okay? I'll give you time to think. Okay, because I didn't know about this either. I surprised myself. I suspect over the next 5 to 10 years, we will see a new middle forming in between parts of old evangelicalism and fundamentalism, and then, more progressive Christianity, that more people in between, in what was the fundamentalist side of the controversy, We merged primarily because of politics. And I would see over the next 5 to 10 years an unmerging where politics doesn't hold us together. And there really is 3 different camps instead of 2 different camps. That's my prediction. Don't disagree with it. Just come up with your own prediction. It's not open for discussion.
Well, what if we agree?
Oh, you can say that.
Okay. I agree.
Hey, I win. Okay.
Well, everyone's looking at me. I'm not going next.
Okay. Christian, what do you think?
Well,
anything you think is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
I just hope we're still here.
Like physically?
Like physically.
Like
you mean the
here.
Holy Post? Or
no,
like
all humanity.
Well, I mean all humanity at this
Jesus
point.
has returned.
And
is this a Vladimir Putin reference?
In case you guys don't know, we're recording this, 2 weeks after
we got a war going
Russia
on
invaded
in
Ukraine. I do think that will begin to inform what we will be talking about, because I do think things are shifting geopolitically. Okay. And I think the way this all shakes out, this moment in time shakes out, is going to change a lot of us. Because I do think, David French wrote an article this week about how this war has now impacted all Americans, because previously we didn't think we cared about anybody else anywhere else.
Right.
And now all of a sudden people are buying renting Airbnbs just to give Ukrainians money. And clearly we do care about other people. So I do think there will be things geopolitically that happen that will change the conversation if we're still here.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll still be doing the podcast, I hope.
Totally. I'm here.
Caitlin will be older then.
Yeah. Maybe you'll finally stop making fun of me for being young.
Oh,
but see, you're always going to be younger than Phil.
Yeah.
She'll be married and she'll have children by that time in 10 years.
Okay, what's your prediction, Kaitlyn?
I'm going to refuse to make a prediction. Because listen, I have a good theological reason.
Every party needs a pooper.
No, listen.
500th episode.
I have
no
a
big
good,
deal.
okay, it is a sort of prediction.
Okay.
And my prediction is rooted in absolute certainty, which is that the Holy Spirit will continue to work in ways that we do not expect, among people that we don't expect, in ways and in places we don't expect. And the reason I say that, and I think it's important to say that, is that for all of the ways that we need to understand our own history and understand our current circumstances and kind of think thoughtfully about the future, we also just are constantly surprised. I mean, that's the story of Scripture. It's the story of the church throughout the globe and in America, that we think we know who the power players are. We think we know what institutions will, have the most influence. We think we know, what dynamics will continue to exist or what ones will change. And then the Holy Spirit works as the Holy Spirit has always worked, in surprising ways, in places we don't expect, in people and in places that we actually would not want the Holy Spirit to work. And I think that's just a good check sometimes when we think we've got things figured out for the future.
Wow.
Well said, sister.
So it sounds like what you're saying is I shouldn't be making predictions about the future.
I think we should make predictions that are tempered by this.
Kind of took the wind out of my segment.
Sorry.
Sales. Happy 500th episode, everybody.
You're basically calling Phil a heretic.
Not a heretic, just wrong.
Happy 5. Skye?
Well, it's hard to go after that.
I know,
isn't it?
I know. God will do stuff, and it will be different than what we expect.
That's a safe prediction.
That is a very safe
What do you
prediction.
think? What are a couple of trends do you think that will continue or change?
I think, 10 years ago, gay marriage was not legal everywhere in the country the way it is now. And I think one of the unresolved pieces of that decision is what are the implications of that for Christian institutions or religious institutions in general beyond churches like Christian colleges and universities. And I think there's going to be a lot of institutional chaos that emerges when that issue finally has to be decided on a denomination by denomination or institutional basis. And you're going to see a lot of Christian organizations having to make a choice between theological conviction and financial stability.
Yeah.
And in a lot of those cases, the financial stability will win out. That's one prediction.
Well, that's a fun one.
I know.
That's really cheerful.
But I think it'll be an ongoing debate, and it'll cause a significant rift on the right side of the spectrum. The other one, though, I think is more hopeful. At least I think it's more hopeful. I think we may well see a significant religious awakening in the next 10 years.
Oh.
And my hunch would be it's not going to come from the church.
It's going to come from Netflix?
No, I think it's going to come from, as Kaitlyn was alluding to, a surprising outside the boundaries of what we would expect.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, and this is anecdotal, I'm increasingly encountering people who have no significant church or religious background, more or less secular upbringings, and it's not working for them. And they're hungry for something more. Mm-hmm. And they're not turning to the evangelical church as a possible solution because they think it's completely bonkers with its politics, but they're still hungry for that. And when they do encounter the gospel, when they do encounter the Jesus that we find in Scripture, I think they're very, very drawn to him. And I think that's going to grow, and I think it's going to trigger an awakening, I hope it does, that many of us are going to be surprised by, and the institutions we have built are going to be ill-prepared to receive. But really good things will come from it.
And new institutions,
perhaps,
new structures, new movements.
Do you think that we will still be talking about racial justice and, still be in a stuck place? Or do you think we will have made progress?
I think there will be more separation between the congregations and the leaders that want to address that and those that don't. So I think there will be more happening on the topic of racial justice, or more enthusiasm from within the church toward actually looking at policy that needs to change nationally or locally. The question is, does the resistance to that die off with an older generation, or does it renew itself with younger generations where there are a lot of tiki torch marchers under the age of 30.
I think one of the pieces that I've kind of actually been frustrated with when I've been in Christian circles talking about race issues is we're talking about it looking backwards, right? And when you look forward, I think a lot of this is the whole conversation is going to change in the next 10 to 20 years because we know from census data, the fastest growing group of people in the United States are people of mixed race heritage. And it's not going to be too long before we're not talking about black and white. We're not even talking about white and people of color. We're talking about a country where a huge number of people are of mixed background, and that conversation looks a lot different than I'm black or I'm Asian or I'm Hispanic and I'm white. Like everything changes.
Right.
Everything changes at that point.
We may be talking more about neighborhoods at that point because there are 2 neighborhoods in Houston where the life expectancy difference is 20 years. There are 2 neighborhoods in Chicago where the life expectancy difference is 18 years. And right now, you can identify the places where people don't live very long are the same places that we redlined 70 years ago. And we put higher polluting manufacturing in those areas and more interstates, that are spewing diesel fumes in those areas. So we're killing those people. So whether you're black or white or beige or somewhere in the middle may become less relevant to where were you born and do you have enough resources to move.
And this gets interesting because the American conversation has almost always been about race. And in the next 20 years, it may well shift to class. In a way that we've not experienced before, which brings up a whole different set of factors.
Fascinating. Well, that was our 500th episode. We're so glad you guys have listened to every single one. That time commitment you made blesses our hearts. So next week, we'll be back for episode 501, back to the normal stuff, talking about what happens this week, not what happens over the last 10 years. But we thank you for listening. We especially thank you for everybody who's signed up on Patreon to support us, because that's how we bought Kaitlyn her beautiful blue sweater. That's how we got some cameras. That's not Kaitlyn's sweater.
Kaitlyn's wardrobe is sponsored by the Holy Post.
Kaitlyn's wardrobe
that would be great.
Underwritten by Kohl's and the Holy Post. And we are so happy that you've supported us. And we're going to do some really cool stuff, we hope, over the next few years that you're going to get to see. So thank you. Happy 500th. Happy 10 years. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Hello, I'm Raphael, originally from San Diego, California, but now living in Pennsylvania. Like a lot of people, I discovered the Holy Post in 2020. Your videos and discussions on racial injustice were an oasis after hearing such issues dismissed from my church's pulpit. I've listened to the podcast regularly since, and your conversations and guests have not only been thoughtful, funny, and insightful, but also a comfort in a time when I've been feeling more and more alone in the culture of the American church. And that has been far more spiritually valuable than I can ever express. I don't know that my faith would have survived 2020 without your encouragement. So I thank the Lord and thank you for everything you do and for speaking much needed truth even to the body of Christ. God bless you.
Hey guys, this is Rick in London. I just wanted to say thanks for your amazing show. Thanks for introducing me to so many amazing people that I wouldn't have heard of if not for you. People like Mike Erie, Esau McCulley, Beth Allison Barr, David French, people who have just meant so much to me and my faith walk, especially through this really challenging and interesting time. You've helped me grow and sometimes just hold it together. So thanks for all that you do. Love listening. And here's to the next 500 amazing episodes.
I'm Laura from Idaho. And to summarize what the Holy Post has meant to me, I would like to quote Christian Taylor's response to one of my favorite episodes, episode 97, which was Phil's interview with an atheist professor named Dr. Peter Boghossian. Christian said that it was a template for an awesome way for Christians to engage our culture and those who disagree with us. And that's basically how I would describe the Holy Post. I really appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work. Thanks.
Denise from Massachusetts here. Thank you, Holy Post. A year ago, I was struggling to understand how the majority of people in every area of my world that I love so deeply could have such opposite views as mine. I was grieving and I felt like an island. But I remained silent of our differences and continued to focus on what we have in common. Then a friend shared the videos that Phil hosted. And finally, I found my people. I am in year 2013 of listening to past Holy Posts and keeping up with the present, and some I had to listen to twice. I love French Friday, and I recently became a Patreon. I also love With God Daily. Thank you, Skye. I am so grateful for Skye's discourse and contemplative thoughtfulness, Christian's honesty and sincerity, Kaitlyn's deep digging for balanced perspectives, Jason's giggle, Phil's lighthearted, honest, intelligent silliness and ukulele, and even news of the butt. Sorry, everyone, it makes me happy. I love you all so very much. I pray you can continue to be. Happy 500th episode.
The Holy Post podcast is a production of Holy Post Media. Production assistance by Julie Betcher. Editing by Jason Rugg. Help us create more thoughtful Christian media by supporting us at patreon.com/Holy Post. Also, be sure to leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover thoughtful Christian commentary, plus ukulele, and occasional butt news. Visit holypost.com for show notes, news stories, Holy Post merchandise, and much more.